Hey, you're listening to Footprints. I'm Li Yi. We've all been a little cooped up for the past few months, isolating at home or going out only for work or to buy necessities. The long-lasting pandemic has also made traveling risky and almost impossible for many people, which can be a little disappointing. Luckily, you can still escape for a while by listening to our Footprint stories. In this episode, we'll bring you the story of a young entrepreneur who has traveled to 30 countries and found his passion in the field of education. He will share with us the fun and the touching moments both on the road and throughout his entrepreneurial experience. Stay tuned.
Would you leave it all behind to set your sights on new horizons?
跟其他人不一样的生活的方法。
將冇可能變成有可能嘅地方。
Could you journey afar to embrace your field of dreams?
江門創業嘅呢3年半嘅時間
I've been in Shanghai for 18 years.
Hear it firsthand from those who took that leap in Footprints.
You can succeed anywhere if you're good enough.
堅持自己嘅初心，堅持自己嘅夢想嘅時候，終有一日你係會贏。
Where everyday people beat the odds and leave their mark. Footprints.
Throughout, the last 30 years, throughout the time in my career, I think I feel like I have learned a lot about myself in terms of, what my passion is, what I'm passionate about, and that changed a lot. Going from someone who studied mathematics, academically to someone now very much involved in education.
Born in 1990 in Hong Kong, Enoch Wang has lived or traveled in Asia, Europe, and Africa. Graduating with a bachelor's degree in mathematics in the UK, Wang eventually took up a career in the educational sector. So far, he has co-founded 3 educational startups and currently lives in Beijing. Before he went to the UK for schooling, Wang was not a good student by any standard in Hong Kong.
When I was young, I wasn't a model student in any standard, especially in the Asian and Oriental standard. I don't think the exam-orientated approach of schooling works for me. I never did well in school when I was in Hong Kong.
Wang's parents, both blue-collar workers, never had a chance to go to college. But Wang says they know the importance of education.
The story that they tell me is that, even before I was born, they knew how important education is. And I think every Chinese parents know this. But they were saving up money for me to go study abroad even before I was born. And that was so that I can have a better life than they did, an easier life than they did. I think that's what all the parents want. So me not doing well in schooling in Hong Kong so make it easier to make that decision.
Wang's parents sent him to the UK to attend a boarding school when he was 10 years old. His mother, Manda Cheng, says she expected her son to be well and internationally educated.
So we wanted Enoch to have an international perspective, to speak well in English as a second language, and to know about other culture. That's why we sent Enoch to the UK in his early education. We were not so worried sending him to the UK because we picked a boarding school for him. There were staff looking after him 24 hours.
Living in a strange country with no family members nearby is difficult enough, especially for children. But Wang seemed to fit in perfectly.
What I found is that when I was 10, I moved to UK. I somehow just didn't get why all my classmates were crying all the time. They are homesick. But I didn't feel that way.
Wang had already learned to be independent when he was very young.
Even though when I was in Hong Kong, my mom has 3 jobs and my dad have 2 jobs. So they work constantly. So I sort of learned since quite young to take care of myself and to be independent. So I had to look after not only myself and my sister too. So I used to take my sister like in weekend in extracurricular activities when we have extra music classes, preparing simple dinner and meals when my parents were away, and simply just looking after my sister, making sure we are both doing homework.
Wang's father, Y.In. Wang, says he and his wife deliberately tried to teach their son to be independent from a young age.
其實每個年青人都應該有自己嘅思想，有自己嘅理想嘅。 I believe each young person should think independently. They have their own dreams. As parents, we are just there to give a hand. We will only guide him when things go wrong. It won't be too difficult if you just want to live a life. But you should really think about how to fulfill your dreams and achieve your goals. That's what you need to fight for by yourself.
It was partly this quality of independence that later helped Wang to start a successful business. But that's a story for later. Wang quickly fitted into life in the UK, even if it wasn't always plain sailing. In fact, at first, the school put him in the wrong grade.
So it's the first year of secondary school. They basically put me one grade higher than I'm supposed to, and they didn't realize it until the end of the first month, and I think that was when we need to pay tuition or something.
But this mistake turned out to be the right thing for Wang.
When they realized the mistake and they were trying to reevaluate how am I doing, what should they do with it, and by the end of it, I took certain tests and they spoke to, my class teachers and tutors, and they realized actually I'm doing fine and actually more than fine. So I end up skipping 2 grades.
The mistake made Wang realize that there might be different evaluation standards for the same student.
That's what led me to my passion and interest in education. What I realized is that I'm almost exactly the same person in Hong Kong and in the UK. But somehow it's that the classroom or the school created a different environment. One in Hong Kong which didn't allow me to thrive and didn't allow me to do well academically, but whereas the environment in the UK helped me to discover and unleash my academic potential studying. And that was for me fascinating.
Wang did pretty well throughout the secondary school in the UK. He eventually went to the University of Warwick to study a major that was scientific and pragmatic.
The degree itself is pronounced more, it is as nerdy as it sounds. It's not the most code, but it stands for Mathematics, Operational Research, Statistics and Economics.
Wang thought majoring in a science subject would help fulfill his dream, which was to become a millionaire.
I still remember when I was in Hong Kong in my primary school, you have this typical essay of the teacher will ask you to write, what do you want to do when you grow up? Because of my family background, I very naively wrote, when I grow up, I want to be a millionaire. That's how much I thought success is defined by.
Wang's decision to choose an economics-related major at college promised to help him succeed in Hong Kong, where banking and financing have been 2 of his pillar industries.
Hong Kong being a city that is very heavy reliance on professional services, right? Whether it's accounting, banking. So that was when I think it has a much more immediate focus on subjects such as mathematics and business, which helped to make my decision. And at the end, I end up choosing a less artistic path in my university and chose mathematics and the most nerdy course that you can get in a university.
But Wang quickly realized that life is not just about titles, making money, or being successful. The trigger for this realization was a job fair that he went to in his freshman year.
They're one of the biggest banks in the UK and in the world. And this recruiter come in and at the stage and she asked us to look, to our left and look towards our right. And then basically she said, congratulations, you guys all got into, one of the very competitive program in the UK at a top university. But however, once you graduate, you guys would all have the same university name on your CV. But what makes you different? And it's a very small moment, but again, it's one of the things which was extremely important to me. And I realized then what makes me different to them. And that was when I wanted an interesting life with interesting stories.
Later, Wang joined a student organization that provided cross-cultural internships in global volunteer exchange programs.
You've been listening to Footprints.
Pakistan is facing a slow-motion tsunami. They need massive additional support.
In 2010, his sophomore year, Wang got a chance to volunteer on the outskirts of Karachi in Pakistan. The country had been hit by one of the most devastating floods in history. The disaster claimed about 2,000 lives and it destroyed 1.6 million houses. As one of the foreign volunteers, Wang was there to help with disaster relief for local people.
So basically, it's relatively labor work. It's nothing, first, I don't know the local language. I was there really just to distribute water, distribute food, making sure people in the Navy camp, in the military camp, they're in an orderly manner, making sure that, we're distributing the resources equally, like the food and water. And basically, at that time, they just need hands.
Actually, Wang didn't know much about Pakistan or any other developing country before the mission.
I was relatively ignorant. I didn't know much about Pakistan, and I think that helped in some way. So I went in with a very open mind. Particularly, I didn't know this China-Pakistan relationship previously.
After about 3 months in Pakistan and witnessing how people try to survive with such a devastating natural disaster, Wang realized that people share similar feelings, and sometimes it doesn't really matter where you come from.
When I was in one of the volunteering camp, so those were, the flooding camp. These were the families, their home were flooded. They no longer have a house. They no longer have a home to go back to. And I see a very humanistic side, that we are all human. We all have this common future, shared future together. And at the end of the day, we have to learn to separate politics and people. Yes, there's conflict between governments, but then at the end of the day, people are people, human are human.
The volunteering experience gave Wang a chance to explore a world that he'd only read about in newspapers before.
The more I know, the more I saw on the media, the more I realized how untrue and how one-sided something is. I still, to date, I met some of the kindest and nicest people in my life, particularly in Pakistan. I think I would even, it's not an understatement, I think that was a life-changing experience and summer that I had.
You've been listening to Footprints.
After graduation, Wang got a job at McKinsey, one of the top consulting firms in the world. There he worked on projects in educational policy, beginning his long-term involvement in the field.
And particularly because one of the projects that I worked on, I gotten very involved with education policy. That was when I realized, yes, there's a lot of different challenges and problems about education. And then I feel like I was very, very passionate to dig deeper rather than staying at a strategic and management level, which is what McKinsey and management consultants do. So therefore, I decided to do something more and something more grounded and more hands-on and more impactful afterward.
That was why Wang decided to leave McKinsey. His destination was Africa, a continent he had never visited before. In 2011, Wang set foot in a wild land on a student leadership training program.
I was working, with universities and NGOs, the United Nations and African Unions, on projects on developing soft skills, leadership skills, employability skills. So something very, very similar to what I have been doing previously at university, but trying to develop my own projects and create my own, courses and curriculum from there.
Wang visited several African countries, including South Africa, Ghana, and Tanzania. Working in Africa was not easy for Wang at first, not only because of the poor infrastructure and a hot, dry climate, but also the challenges of understanding local educational system in a short time.
That is challenging in the sense that I was never a student in Ghana, in South Africa, in Tanzania, but I need to understand what the journey is like. What were their 3, 4, 5 years in university is like, in order for me to understand what they have learned and what would be the output of the higher education at that country. But at the same time, also speaking with companies and trying to understand, what are the jobs, what are the skills that they need for what jobs, and trying to, you can call match up and try to identify gaps.
Despite the many challenges, Wang found it an inspiring experience.
I met a lot of really passionate young people in Africa that came up to me and say, when they ask you what is your dream, instead of saying they want to be millionaires, they say they want to be presidents, of their country. And the reason why is because they saw problems. They're educated in university, but they saw problems in the society, and they want to be a responsible person, a socially responsible person, and they want to have the opportunity to lead the country to a better future.
This experience in Africa made Wang even more determined to start a business in the field of education. In 2015, he launched a company with 5 partners in Hong Kong. The company mainly offers courses in coding, digital marketing, and digital design.
And we believe that technology is the future. It is not a question whether technology is the future, but it's about whether you will be the one who command technology or technology will be the one to control you. We think coding is kind of like a language which requires somewhat communication. It helps to develop communication skills, because if you see coding as what you want and what it appears in front of you in a computer, computer, like in a very cliche way, computer is very, very stupid. You need to tell the computer what to do, and that's what coding is.
It took Wang and his partners about a year to expand their business. At first, his company offered courses to walk-in customers. Then it partnered with local schools and universities.
We also talked with schools and started after-school programs, started summer camps. At the end, we managed to work with one of the schools in Hong Kong International School, in introducing a curriculum that the school made it compulsory that every single student need to learn coding, and that never happened before. And we believe that set somewhat a precedence, starting to change the education system in coding. So we see this, yes, somewhat a success, and that also financially helped, because that was one of the first, 7 figures contract that we received.
Later, Wang and his team managed to expand the business to Southeast Asia and the United States. The Chinese mainland was also on Wang's radar.
I think like any company, any startup, China mainland is a holy grail, is a huge market, something is very, very interested in.
Wang first started a firm in Guangzhou, which mainly provides foreign trade companies with cultural training. This attempt was quite successful. In 2016, he moved to Beijing to tap into these rich educational resources.
Throughout my career, my short career, I'm still very much interested in education, particularly higher education, and there's no other city than Beijing. Beijing has the most number of top universities in whole China. So if I were to start something related to university students, there's no better place than Beijing.
In Beijing, Wang set up CareerX, a company that provides career training for both university students and corporate staff.
We have a B2C, a business-to-customer product. We have a business-to-business product. We work with schools. We work with universities. We work with corporate. We end up created a B2B product that focuses on corporate training, on designing and implementing corporate training on innovation and entrepreneurship.
After all those big and small trials and having left footprints all over the world, Wang has his own successful business. It would have seemed a natural thing for him to rest on his laurels, but Wang thought his journey was just the beginning. In 2019, after about 8 years of workplace experience, Wang decided to study at Tsinghua University for a master's degree. The decision was not only out of Wang's desire for input and deeper research in his profession, but also out of a bit of identity crisis.
I spent more than half of my life outside of my home city and outside, China as a whole. I left Hong Kong, I left China at the age of 10. So I was having in somewhat I call identity crisis. I didn't quite know where I'm from, and that was a particularly troubling sort of feeling that I had, and I really want to capitalize on this opportunity to get to know who I am and particularly where I'm from.
And now, after a year of studying at Tsinghua, Wang tells me he knows more about his country and is proud to be Chinese. Particularly, he chose to become a member of the Guards of Honor at the university. This means he has to show up at 5 o'clock in the morning every Monday to raise the national flag on the campus and take part in regular training every week. But Wang says all this has paid off.
I really enjoy it. I think one of the moments I enjoy the most is this Guard of Honor team that I am a part of. It's one of the very, very few moments, particularly in Tsinghua, but also my whole entire China experience so far, that I feel like I am a Chinese, but I'm not a Hong Kong Chinese. In the Guard of Honor, we all treated the same. We are all under the same flag. We all under the same identity that we are Chinese. And I think that helped me to create this pride that I don't feel like I would have gotten any other way.
At the beginning of this year, Wang got a chance to visit Kashgar in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region in northwestern China as part of a winter camp program for Tsinghua's Guards of Honor. Wang and his team spent a week there, mainly teaching at a local primary school and visiting villagers. For Wang, the trip was an eye-opener.
We also have the opportunity to walk through the villages, and we will have the head of the villages who share the stories and the social development, how the effort of poverty alleviation program has been in improving the life of Chinese across the whole of China. And that was very striking for me. There was so much focus on making a better standard of living for the ethnic minority while preserving their culture. I think it never really get covered abroad. As someone who unfortunately live most of my time outside of Chinese mainland, I think a lot of media in the West really don't report at all sometimes about the economic development, or even I would call economic miracle, of how the Chinese government and the Communist Party have lifted so many people out of poverty, that a lot of people were able to be financially independent, that they were able to be financially sustainable as families, as villagers in the rural areas. And I find that fascinating to see it firsthand with my feet and with my own eyes.
Wang has now graduated from Tsinghua University and is pursuing a doctor's degree in higher education, particularly online education, which he considers a promising industry in China. While he's still pursuing a new destination for his career, he has already found one in love. 2 years ago, Wang met Claire Hao, a talented girl from northeastern China who also works in the educational sector in Beijing. Now a couple, they sometimes work together as well.
So I would say that when he's at work, he has super high standards and he's so committed that he won't even sleep. He's very well connected and he really cares his colleagues and the professors that he works with. So I would say that he's a very nice person to work with. Whereas in daily life, I would say Enoch is quite flexible and he's very easygoing and he fits well with the different sort of environments that he's in.
At the end of our interview, Wang tells me he will keep exploring himself and the world just as he has been doing for the past 30 years. And he encourages everyone to step out of their comfort zone and to see the world outside.
But I'm very, very fortunate to have very, very local experiences in so many different countries. And I feel like there's an old idiom saying that he that travels far knows much. Nothing compares with the journey on your feet and with your own eyes. And I encourage everyone to see the world for yourself, because I think it is very, very important to be informed. It is very, very important to make your own judgment and from your own experience.
That's all for this episode of Footprints. If you like our show, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. We'd love to hear your ideas, thoughts, or even your footprint stories. Find us on Facebook by keying in Footprints and leave us a comment there. Until next time, thank you for listening.